June 27, 1844, Carthage, Illinois. A mob of angry people break into the room, which serves as an improvised prison. They are so furious that they start shooting through the door. One man is killed instantly. Another, a man named Joseph Smith, is hit at the window from which he falls outside the house. Even though he is apparently dead on impact, the mob continues to lynch him. This bloody event was not particularly different from the hundreds of other incidents that took place on American soil in the 19th century. But the man who was lynched was a man who claimed to be a new prophet of God and to have, like Jesus Christ, 12 apostles. A man who founded a new Christian church that gained tens of thousands of followers in his short lifetime. This Joseph Smith was the founder of the Mormon Church. You might think that the story must have taken place sometime in the ancient days of patriarchs and omnipresent messiahs. But it's not. It begins in 1805 in the state of Vermont in America. This is a time when the recently founded United States are experiencing a passionate religious turmoil. Methodists, Baptists, Presbyterians, and other branches of the Protestant Church are pitted against each other. Then a son, Joseph Jr., is added to the 10 children in the family of Joseph Smith, a poor sheep herder. His parents are also religiously passionate, both of them having had at least one apparition, and young Joseph is clearly confused. And then will come the events described in Mormon tradition. When Joseph is 14 years old, he goes to pray in the woods, and there two figures supposedly appear to him, God and his son, Jesus Christ. Joseph asks them what church he should join in these troubled times, and is told that he should join none, that they are all wrong, and that he would learn more in time. Three years later, the second vision will come. This time, an angel is said to appear to Joseph, who introduces himself as Moroni. He tells him that he has a mission in life, to proclaim the new truth of God to the people. The Christian Bible, according to Moroni, is not definitive, for there is yet to be a new gospel buried on Mount Gomorrah in New York State. Here, Joseph is said to find a stone chest, and in it, golden plates with a text. Because the writing is ancient, Joseph is not able to read it, so he is to use the enclosed so-called seer stones to clarify the text for him. Joseph will indeed find the golden plates with the new gospel, but it will be several years, during which he will marry, before he receives God's permission to begin work on the translation. However, he cannot write, so he must hire a scribe. He then dictates the wording of the book by looking into a hat which he claims to have these seer stones in. In 1830, that's when he is 25 years old, he publishes a translation called the Book of Mormon. Readers are astonished. In nearly 600 pages of a book whose structure bears many similarities to the Bible, Smith unravels the fantastic story of the tribes of Israel, who sailed to America in 589 BC, where Jesus Christ visited them after his resurrection and told them the news that it was in America that the kingdom of God would one day come. And that it was Joseph Smith who was chosen to be the prophet and founder of a new church that, unlike the current ones, would return to the original essence of the faith. The publication of the book caused great emotions. Many claimed Joseph Smith is a fraud who made up the text himself. This was compounded by Smith's refusal to publicly display the gold plates he claimed to have found. He said that only a few friends saw them, and he had to return them to the angel Moroni as soon as the translation was completed. Smith's extended family and many others, however, believed Joseph's version of events, and on April 6, 1830, in this small house in the village of Fayette, New York, they founded a religious society later called the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. Its adherents would be called Mormons, after their holy book. Beginnings are rough. The neighborhood is not sympathetic to the new faith, and there are physical attacks on church members. So the very next year, the entire community moves 300 miles further east to Kirtland, Ohio. Here, the number of believers is gradually expanding. No longer dozens but hundreds and later thousands. Joseph Smith is proving to be a charismatic and very enterprising leader. He decides to build a Mormon temple, and when he runs out of funds, he establishes a Mormon-owned bank that even issues its own money, signed by the prophet Joseph himself. However, the bank fails in 1837, and Joseph Smith and his loyalists flee again from some angry Mormons who have lost everything. This time a full 900 miles away, to a place he had already identified as the future New Jerusalem. Today, this community is called Independence, located in the state of Missouri at the westernmost tip of what was then the United States. Here the situation is largely repeated. Mormons arouse great distrust in the neighborhood, just by claiming that when the new kingdom comes, ownership of the land will be theirs alone. They also don't have slaves. In addition, their numbers have already grown to 10,000. Soon, the skirmishes escalate into open hostility, and the Mormons, who were intent on avoiding violence, are forced to form an armed force called the Danites, who not only defend their fellow believers, but also launch terrorist raids on their enemies. Yola! Basically, an all-out war against the Mormons breaks out, which, after massacres on both sides, ends with a victory for the government troops. They drive the entire Mormon community outside Missouri and capture the prophet Joseph Smith. Smith will spend 6 months in prison. At first he is to be executed, but then he manages to bribe the guards and escape. He joins the others at the third, and in his case, final place that is supposed to represent the future of his church. It is a swampy area along the Mississippi River in Illinois, which Smith somewhat paradoxically calls Nauvoo, which means beautiful in Hebrew. While Smith begins to build another temple here, he also has to fend off attacks on his person. His fellow believers begin to question his leadership, and things get worse in 1841, when Smith declares that God asked him to practice polygamy, simply that the more women he had, the better. Smith confided that right from the founding of his church, although he was already officially married and had 10 children, he had secretly married many other women. Historians estimate the number at 38 to 40. The youngest was 14, and the oldest over 50, and at least 11 of them had husbands of their own. This information will turn the Mormon community upside down. The neighborhood also begins to rebel against them even more. By June 1844, the situation has reached the point where the state government begins planning a major raid on Nauvoo. This can only be averted by Joseph Smith and his brother Hiram surrendering to justice. On 23rd of June, the two brothers ride together on horseback to the nearby town of Carthage, where they are immediately locked up in a small makeshift prison. While awaiting trial, an angry mob learns of their presence, and a bloody lynching begins, which neither of them has a chance of surviving. Joseph Smith thus becomes not only a prophet and founder of the Mormon Church, but also its first martyr.